Well, I guess Peter gave me an idea. He came up with this very interesting video right now about his childhood and the many diseases he had. The title I wasn't too impressed with. I thought it was kind of negative. But the story was very interesting. It's about his early years and how he was treated and how he went through all kinds of illnesses, which we as children always had. It's surprising, I'm 86 now, that I made it for this long a period of time. But today things are a lot easier. There are medications that help, and he was right. There were those medications prescribed by the local doctor. Now, I lived in a small town. We had a doctor who, well, by today's measure, he wouldn't quite measure up. But he prescribed something for any kind of illness that you had. Let's say you had a cough, let's say you had sniffles, let's say whatever it was. And he would give you this medication. It was in a bottle, it was yellow, and we called it PP. I guess you know what that means. And we weren't too crazy about that stuff. It tasted awful. And it really didn't do any good, but anyway, we thought that was the cure-all for everything. So anything happened, my mother would say, okay, let's get that stuff. The other thing was that I didn't like to go to school very much, and whenever I had a chance, I would pretend to be very ill, and my mother was still in bed, and I would come up to her, and I would have a terribly long face, and I would look very, very ill, and I would complain about headaches and about this and about that. And the minute she woke up, she smoked a cigarette, and then she looked at me and she said, well, I'll tell you what, why did you take Bullary salts? Now, Bullary salts in Germany is about the same as Tums is today. Take a Tums and go to school. Well, that was the end of it. So I had to go to school. Now, my way to school wasn't all that simple. It was about a 30-minute ride on a train, and getting to the train was about a 20-minute walk across fields, and the train was really one wagon uh, on a freight train. And then we went to the town, which was about 10, 12 miles away, and then we had to walk another 20 minutes from there to the school, and same thing on the way back. So I tried to avoid it at all costs, but it never worked. My mother was ingenious. She was just very, very thin. She weighed under 100 pounds, and she wasn't ill very often, but at one time she caught pneumonia. The doctor came, and he sat on our bed, and the two of them smoked a cigarette, which was probably not a very good idea to do. And then she had to be brought to the hospital, where she died at the age of 45. And of course, that was devastating for us. We were very much dependent on her, and we loved her very much. And for a child at 15 years of age to lose a mother is quite a nightmare. My poor sister was 2 years younger, so to her it was even worse, probably, if that's possible. My poor father was alone with such a wonderful marriage, and we felt very, very sorry for him. But those were the things that happened, and this was during the war, and this was in Germany. Now, I can claim to have come from very simple backgrounds. We were sort of landed gentry. We had several large estates, we had a large dairy, and we didn't do any physical work there. We had a lot of overseers and inspectors and whatnot. We had woods, forests, and had a forester and his crew. So it was a wonderful life. And when the Nazis came, it didn't change for the worse, but it changed for the better, actually, when I'm going to be quite honest about it, because they were very concerned about the production and made sure that we produced well, and they gave us advice, and the advice was always free. There were experts coming to the house, working with my dad, and giving him advice. So I really can't say anything at that time. We were off, we were pretty well off. My grandfather was of the old Prussian type, very reserved, not warm, but lived in a huge house with servants. And my father and he didn't get along all that well, so my father left and put his own house up. And we lived in that house just across from the large house of my grandfather, which was more like a mansion, 50 rooms and many servants and so on. And then, of course, when the war came, things at first were fine. And then towards the end of the war, of course, we were invaded by the Russians. And when that happened, everything was taken away from us. So it was not from rags to riches, it was from riches to rags. And I, in the meantime, had served in the military and was at the front and was taken prisoner. And when I came back, there was nothing to come back to. So I went back to West Germany, where I was a stranger like everybody else. And I figured I might as well continue. So I applied to immigration for Canada, United States, Australia, Argentina, and Venezuela. Argentina was the last straw. If everybody else turned me down, the Argentina would certainly take me. Since I was in the army and I was in the Hitler Youth and I was in the labor service, the Americans weren't too crazy about me, so they sent me a letter saying I was undesirable. I should have kept that letter because the term was rather crass. And but the Canadians accepted me with open arms. And so in 1951, I went to Canada. And in 1952, my wife, independent of me, emigrated to Canada as well. And we met in Canada. Naturally, you know, you flocked together. There were Germans, and they came almost the same time, so you had certain cliques. And with her, it clicked immediately. She's been the light of my life and has been ever since, and I'm so fortunate to still have her and to have her in good health. And we're both in excellent health. And we've had our little bouts at here and there, but you know, things can happen. But if you told me who is the most important, the most wonderful person in the universe, there wouldn't be a minute's hesitation. I can tell you exactly who. And we're still on honeymoon. We haven't had a single fight yet, and that's in 57 years. So I have really nothing to complain. I can be very, very happy. Even though we have to build up our existence from scratch, and well, that has its difficulties. But all in all, I'm an extremely happy person. And maybe if you're interested, I can tell you more about these times. They were quite interesting. Our relationship with the National Socialists had its ups and downs. And well, maybe some other time I'll talk about it. Right now, let's leave it at that.